Where else would you rather be than right here, right now, tuning in to Bills Central Radio?
Time now for Bills Central Radio with ProFootballCentral.com's Chris Brown and BillsMafia.com Del Reid.
Let's go, Buffalo. Let's go, Buffalo. Let's go, Buffalo. Touchdown, rain, sleet, or snow. Let's go, Buffalo.
We're back here on Bills Central Radio on July 1st, Monday. My name is Chris Brown, and I am on the line with the co-host of the show. How are we doing today, Del?
I'm doing all right, man. How you doing?
Doing fantastic. The month has finally arrived. That means one thing, Bills training camp at the end of the month. So it's definitely going to be a quick month that we're all looking forward to for sure.
Yeah, without a doubt. I'm not one to wish days away, but July is always hard for me every year because you know the training camp's coming up in 3 or 4 weeks or whatever, depending on when they have it scheduled that year. And it's just you want to enjoy the summer, but at the same time you're looking forward to camp, and you're waiting for your see all the different things that are going to happen going on with the Bills and everything. And then on top of that, you got fantasy football drafts you're preparing for and everything. So July is one of the most beautiful months here in Western New York. I always get eaten up with football, even though there's nothing being played yet.
Yeah, absolutely. You can't wish the days away fast enough, but yet we want to get to training camp. We got a good show lined up for our fans today. We have a couple of guests on the show. We have Chris Burke, writer for Sports Illustrated, but then we also have Bill's punter, Brian Stahovich, joined us today on the show. He's our first guest today. How you doing today, Brian?
How you doing?
Doing well. Thank you for joining us today.
Oh, no problem. Always an honor to be on with the Bills Mafia.
Now, coming out of college, you were an undrafted free agent who was signed by the Indianapolis Colts, and then eventually were signed by the Buffalo Bills earlier this year. How does it feel to be back on the playing field and doing what you love?
I mean, it's phenomenal. I would say it was a big thing because after I got released from Indy, I went back to school, and I was out of football, and I was actually working in the equipment room at San Diego State, folding towels and doing the football laundry. So it's really a humbling experience to go from, one side of the wall to the other. And then as soon as I got the opportunity and the Bills wanted to bring me in, I was already been working really hard, and I just had that much more motivation. And really just got excited and got after it. And luckily, I showed off pretty well, and they signed me.
Good. Now, you're pretty much a California kid. You're a Californian. How do you like the style? How do you like the style of Buffalo and what it has to offer you?
I love the feel of Buffalo and the whole community atmosphere, and how everyone's the people of Buffalo are by far the toughest people I've ever met, as far as going what they go through. And out here in California, if it rains once in the month, everyone's complaining. People are, can't drive in. There's traffic everywhere. And Buffalo, you guys just take what you get and you go on. And I think that's phenomenal.
Now, what's your favorite part about the area? What do you like most about Buffalo?
I like the weather isn't as bad as everyone says, first off. I liked it there. A little rain here and there. At least there's no wildfires, But I'd say the number one thing was the sense of community. And I've hung out with a couple different people around the area, and everywhere you go, everyone's so friendly, and it's just a phenomenal place. I'd love to live there.
That's awesome, man. That's awesome. This is Del from BillsMafia.com. It's been a pleasure the past couple months chatting with you on Twitter and everything. You seem to really embrace the fans, and you have fun with your Deuces Loose hashtag and everything. I think that's great.
Yeah.
So, for that, thank you, because, so often fans or so often players can be a little bit aloof or whatever, and you haven't been like that at all. I think it's great. So whatever you're doing, man, keep it up. It's awesome.
Oh, yeah. We're all here for the fans. If it weren't for fans and no one wanted to watch the sport, then it wouldn't be a sport at all.
That is absolutely correct.
You guys are the ones. So, you're the ones that are fueling my dream here. So,
Well, happy to oblige, let me tell you. So, now, speaking about the game, special teams play seems to always get swept under the rug. When you're talking about the game with your friends and everything, and it's a pivotal part. Have you seen it evolve over the past several years or whatever? Especially the punting game. Like, what are your thoughts on that? Like here's your soapbox. Go ahead and tell us why special teams is so important.
Oh, I just think, from when I was at San Diego State, and one of the coaches we had there at the time was Brady Hoke, and his biggest thing was special teams and how vital special teams are in every phase, no matter what it is, whether it's field goal block, field goal, punt return, kickoff return. You start the game on kickoff or kickoff return, and you can go down, coming down the field and set the tone for the game. That's about as good as it gets. And having huge punt returns or blocking a punt, if you block a punt, 70% of the time you're going to win the game, which I don't think there's any one play that could do that much damage or get you that much ahead of time.
Yeah, that's a great point, but nobody talks about that stuff until it happens, then it consumes everybody's thoughts.
Right, because it's only, there's only a few special teams plays. There's only probably, a couple handfuls of plays each game that are special teams plays, especially now that the kickoffs are moved up. There's a lot more touchbacks, so that kind of eliminates that part of the game slightly. But for the most part, until you get a huge punt return, you don't really think about the whole punt return team.
Yep, exactly. So, all right, so I, like many Bills fans, kind of obsess over the team, just a little bit. So, whenever the team signs somebody, they'll send a text message to your phone if you can subscribe to it. So,
nice.
It's nice. So several months ago, your name came across my phone, and I'm like, who's this guy? So I go to Google, I type in your name, and I see this YouTube clip of a punt that you had at San Diego State. It was 89 yards. I made sure I shared that with, whomever. Yeah, so I made sure I shared that with whomever, follows me on Twitter or whatever. Tell me about that play, man. Were you, surprised at how far the ball traveled, and did you feel a lot of high fives from your teammates, or what?
That was a pivotal game because that was our game. If we won it, we became bowl eligible for the first time in decades almost at San Diego State. And we only had 2 punts that game, and the first one got blocked. And it was bad. And I jumped on a guy, and they didn't score luckily right off that. I think we settled on a field goal for that, and then we're back up in our own end zone. And when you're back up in your own end zone, you already think get the ball off, especially since you had the previous punt blocked. So I get it; it's a little high snap, but me personally, I always do better on high snaps, so I'm thankful that happened. And then I just caught it and kicked it as hard as I could, and the thing flew downfield. And all I could think of from my view was that all our guys got stuck in tight, and that guy's back there by himself, and he's backing up, and I can't really judge where the ball is. It's already a little scooting forward, so I was going to try to kick it over his head. And luckily, I got a little bit lucky on that, and it got past him, and it just started rolling downfield. And then he tried to field it, and he just knocked it out of bounds. And an 89-yard net punt really helped the swing of the game, I think.
Yeah, the 89 yards is definitely nothing to sneeze about. It's pretty impressive, and for any of the fans that have definitely checked it out, I've checked it out personally. It makes you go, wow, that is crazy. That's very rare. You never ever really see anything like that happening. So it was pretty cool to see from a fan standpoint. And like you said, it played a pivotal role in your game, which is good for your team. Now,
exactly.
Coach Marrone talks a lot about having open competitions at every position, and that's something that he stressed a lot this offseason. At this point, it's basically a 2-man race between you and the other punter on the roster currently, Shane Powell, for the punting duties. What do you believe that you can do with this upcoming training camp that's coming to help separate yourself and potentially land a starting spot on the roster?
Well, with Coach Crossman, the head special teams coach, he's got some phenomenal schemes, and we work a lot of directional punting, and I think that's one thing especially that's going to be crucial to do, and going through this training camp and, you know, the preseason games, I'd like to net as high as I could. I mean, last year with India, I was only fortunate enough to get one punt, and it was, I think, I directionaled it left, and it was, I think, a 47-yard punt with a 48-yard net, and I ended up somehow leading the NFL in net punting, and that's what my goal is again to do, is to have super high net. That way, you know, we're not giving up big returns, and I can put some hang time on the ball out near the sideline and force some fair catches and really help our team win games.
Okay. Now, do you focus more on the net punting, or do you because a lot of media outlets tend to focus on hang time a little bit. From your perspective, are you more concerned about the net yardage more than the hang time?
I'd say actually probably both at the same time. I mean, you want to hit a great hang time punt out near the sideline, because, I mean, that will immediately force fair catch if the guy can't get out there and field it. And even if he is catching it and the gunner's in his face and he's, you know, on the opposite side of the field is where he's supposed to run to, he's going to fair catch it. So I'd say I try to focus on, I mean, I try to average 5.0 on hang time, which, you know, no one's doing, but if you don't expect much, you don't get much. So I like to aim high and see what happens.
Okay. Now, since you're rival in Buffalo, let's talk about techniques a little bit. Have the coaches changed any of your normal punting routines or rituals? And let's give a little bit of a fan insider information here as to what are your thought process and what goes through your mind before a punt occurs.
Well, I'd say as soon as I came up, I mean, as soon as I got into Buffalo and, you know, went through the minicamp and everything, I mean, Coach Crossan gave me some tips that really helped me improve my consistency and just overall fundamentals, and didn't really, you know, change anything, you know, just let me punt my game, which is phenomenal. I mean, that doesn't always happen at almost any level, but I was very thankful for that. And, you know, just the biggest thing I would say that I just got to do my own thing and show what I had to do, and that was great.
Now, Brian, you're actually working with Brian Moorman's Punt Foundation, as I understand it, which I think is fantastic. It has such a legacy here. Can you tell us what they got you doing over there?
Yeah. I was fortunate enough to meet Gwen Mizek, who actually runs the foundation. She's almost adopted me because, you know, I am Polish, and I've never been anywhere. San Diego doesn't really have a huge Polish community, and, you know, Buffalo has such a huge Polish community that, I mean, I've never heard of Dingus Day or all the other kind of Polish traditions, and that was something cool I just got to learn and pick up, and I got to hang out with the family and stuff. And one of the first things I did was I went to the dinner, and then after that I got involved with a part of Roswell Hospital that's teens living with cancer. It's for teens that have overcome and won the battle against cancer and are now trying to get back into like a healthy living style and work out and stuff. And it was fun. I mean, it was every Sunday, and I got to put the kids through some workouts, and we had a blast. So, you know, I complain about that. It's always good to get back, and I mean, I think you can do one thing to help a kid get on a better path down their life. I mean, that's worth every second of it, I think.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's fantastic. That's, as you're probably aware, the whole Bills Mafia thing, which I help head up. All of our profits go to Roswell, and Brian always had a good connection with the Punt Foundation and everything with Roswell Park, so it's nice to be able to play a part in that. It's great, like I said, the legacy continue. That's fantastic.
Yeah, and that's one thing that I think has always been really a great thing about Brian Moorman is, I mean, not only was he, you know, a Pro Bowl punter, phenomenal guy, he was, you know, a saint off the field and doing all this stuff with Roswell, and I think that's very commendable. And if I'm fortunate enough to, you know, make the 53-man roster, I'd love to. I even told Gwen this, the leader of the foundation, that, you know, I'd love to help out and do whatever I could to just help the foundation keep it going, because, well, Brian's out in Pittsburgh with the Steelers.
That's awesome. That's awesome, man. And I tell you what, I'm pulling for you. You know, a lot of Bills fans are pulling for you. We love the whole Deuces Loose hashtag. I think it's great. And so you gonna win it or what? You gonna win the job?
Yeah, that's my goal. I mean, no one goes to battle to lose, right? So I'm out here doing every day, 5 days a week, even a little extra stuff on Sundays, getting ready. So
that's awesome. Well, you just said a few minutes ago, expect much, and you don't expect much, you won't get much.
Yep. And the other one, the greatest phrase my dad ever taught me was, people don't, they fail to plan. So I'm working out my plan right now for camp, and by the time I get there, the battle will hopefully already be won.
That's awesome, man. I'm wishing you the best. One more question, if you don't mind. I'm going to tack this on at the end here, because I'm just curious.
Of course.
Okay, so you went to San Diego State, and you're a proud Aztec. I mean, it's even in your Twitter handle. It's and then we'll have you announce that in a couple of seconds so we can make sure we get Bills fans following you, because you're a great follow. Kirk Morrison was with the Bills in 2011 and most of 2012. Have you ever had a chance to meet Kirk Morrison? He's a fellow alumnus, and or if not Kirk, have you had a chance to meet any other famous former Aztecs? Since either when you're at the university or even now that you're out.
Oh yeah, definitely. I'd say Kirk is. I mean, he was the head coach Rocky Long right now, who took over my senior year. He was the head coach in Mexico, and he hated playing the Aztecs. Kirk Morrison was there because Kirk Morrison was the leader of the dark side, which is what they called the Aztecs defense then in that era. And I mean, he came out a couple weeks before during our preseason camp when he wasn't on a team, I believe. And I got to meet him then, which was an honor. I mean, he's a phenomenal guy, great all-around guy. And I would say the other one, obviously, that anyone who knows about San Diego State is Marshall Falk. And he's just another great guy who's been very supportive of the program through thick and thin. And they're both just stand-up, great guys. Can't say enough great things about them.
Nice.
Now, where can the Bills fans that aren't currently following you just yet, Brian, catch you on Twitter?
What can they what? Sorry.
Where can they catch you on Twitter? What's your Twitter handle for those fans who aren't following you?
My Twitter name is @AZTCBeast14.
And they'll be sure to catch out your hashtag on Deuces Loose. We'll have to get that trending for you for sure.
Oh yeah, definitely. We gotta get that trending every day during training camp. Do it.
Absolutely. Well, we'd like to thank you for joining us and taking the time to speak with us today on Bills Central Radio, Brian. We appreciate your time.
Oh, no problem. Thanks for having me on.
Hi, this is Dominique Ellis of the Buffalo Bills. You're now listening to Bills Central Radio Show, the best radio show on the planet.
And we're back here on Bills Central Radio. We have our second guest of the show today. We have Chris Burke, who is the NFL writer for SportsIllustrated.com. How are you doing today, Chris?
Doing pretty well. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for taking the time. We'll go ahead and get started. We got a few questions for you. Of course, Bills related for all the Bills fans out there. We'll first start off by asking you, what are your thoughts on the Bills off-season moves that they made so far with the signings of Alan Branch, Manny Lawson, and the additions of Jerry Hughes for the defense?
Yeah, I mean, I think they've taken some decent steps. I liked a lot more what they'd done in the draft than what they did free agency trade-wise. Alan Branch, Jerry Hughes, those couple of guys you mentioned are guys that had high potential coming into the league and haven't necessarily met that potential. So, it's not a bad thing to get them on the cheap, take a shot, and see what you can come up with. I think they've done some good things this offseason. I think they've addressed some needs, and I like the way the roster's shaping up so far.
Now, from what you've been hearing so far, what are your basic impressions of Coach Doug Marrone? And, do you feel, as of a few months into the new regime, that the Bills made a good hire, even though they haven't really played any games or training camp hasn't even occurred just yet?
Yeah, it's hard to really judge Marrone until we see him. It was kind of a surprising hire, I guess, just because of sort of the route that he took to the coaching job. But we know that he ran a good offense at Syracuse. We know that he's come in and brought in guys that he wants that can fit his system, and especially includes E.J. Manuel, it looks like. So we'll see, I guess. I think the jury's very much out, but the opportunity's there in that division with the Patriots having their issues and the Jets looking like they're not going to be that good. I mean, the opportunity is certainly there for Marone to make a splash.
Yeah, that's a great point. This is Reid from BillsMafia.com. Thanks so much for coming out and spending some time with us today. I appreciate it. Now, we're Bills fans, so we're used to worrying. We've always got something to worry about. Now, Chris Burke, he's the current guy who's consuming our thoughts. That franchise tag is really coming down on us now with the deadline in a few weeks. You think the Bills are going to sign him to a long-term deal, and you think we can afford to lose him?
It doesn't sound great in terms of signing him to a long-term deal, which, it's tough. The closer you get to this, the more there is a little bit of panic to try and get it done. And if it doesn't get done, then you just hope that, the guy signs it shows up on time and all those sorts of things. I wouldn't be surprised if he doesn't sign and then they have to readdress this again next offseason. I mean, I don't think he really is a guy at this point with the way their roster's set up that they can afford to lose, because they're not particularly deep, particularly talented at the safety spot, and he's clearly a huge part of that secondary. So, you make that argument and you sort of think, well, maybe the Bills should just cave and give him what he's asking for. But like I said, I wouldn't be surprised if he ends up playing this year on a franchise tag. Players don't like doing it because obviously there's a lot of risk involved, but it's certainly not the worst thing in the world for Buffalo if he has to do it. And, you sort of see, especially with a new coaching staff, it's never a terrible thing to have a guy on a one-year deal and see if he fits with the new systems and fits with the new coaching staff and is that kind of elite franchise player that he wants to be paid like. So, they might get it done. I'm inclined to think at this point that they won't, and he'll be on that one-year contract, and then they'll have to deal with it again next offseason.
Yeah, I'm afraid you're going to say that. Now, you just talked about how he compares to the Bills roster. How about comparing him to his peers in the NFL at the safety position? How do you think he ranks overall?
It's a good question. I mean, like I said, he's obviously been a key member of the Bills secondary, and certainly the way they stack up now, they need him back there. I mean, I think if you look at last year and how he played last year, there weren't that many safeties that were more consistent across the board for the entire season, I don't think, than he was. I mean, there were a couple of guys that had really good years. I mean, you look at Eric Weddle in San Diego, who I think you could argue was the best safety in football last year, and maybe a guy like Kerry Rhodes had a really good year. But I think Bird was right up there and did a lot of the things that you'd want a safety to do. He's, you kind of take any of the numbers that you'd want to look at in terms of judging safeties. I mean, his tackle numbers weren't necessarily as high as Weddle or a couple of those guys, but he made a lot of tackles. I mean, he broke up a lot of passes. I mean, he certainly did a lot of the things that, as I was just saying, kind of that elite level of safety would do. So, if we're going just based off last year, I think he was clearly, a top 10 safety at least, maybe even higher than that. I think one of the things this year will be, I think people are maybe sort of overlooking how valuable George Wilson was last year for the Bills. So, I think it'll be interesting to see if Bird can repeat his performance now with a little less proven combination there.
Yeah, as Dell alluded to, Bird is definitely in their thoughts, so to speak. Now, switch gears just a little bit. With the recent news going on with the Patriots, do you believe that, New England's been the most vulnerable that they've been in recent years, with Brady losing 5 of his top targets, with Welker Hernandez and the injuries to Gronkowski, losing the additions of Lloyd as well? And do you think that the Bills could, with the new pieces that they're starting to put in place, do you think the Bills will start to overcome their recent history of losing to the Patriots? And do you think they could potentially overtake them in a few years?
Yeah, I mean, I think the door's pretty open in the AFC East this year. We've kind of done this with the Patriots before. I feel like we always sort of write them off, and then, any team that starts with Tom Brady is going to be competitive. They still have a really good offensive line. They'll get Gronkowski back at some point. They have a good run game. I mean, so if their defense holds up, you kind of figure that at some point Tom Brady will find someone to throw to, whether it's guys that are on the roster, they go out and bring someone in. So I still think New England's the favorite in that division, but I think it's there for the taking. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if 9-7, 10-6 is kind of the cutoff point for that division winner, and I think the Bills have a lot of pieces in place that they could make a run at that. I mean, there's some good talent on that offense, obviously in the backfield, and the defense I think has to be better than it was last year. So, I think if Marrone gets his system in place right away, they figure out who their quarterback is, and that guy is successful, I think they could challenge even this year. And looking at their schedule, I mean, it's sort of laid out for them to start well, and that week 1 game with the Patriots could be really, you make a statement early, and then who knows from there.
Yeah, that's what we're all hoping for. Sure, come out the gates week 1 and put it right to the Patriots and hopefully start the season off right. Now, throughout the NFL years, a few teams come out of the gates and start to surprise, the league with, their winnings and everything like that. Now, would you put the Buffalo Bills on that list, that they'll surprise a few people and you kind of think they're under the radar a little bit, and as to why you think they could potentially be on that list?
Yeah, I think they could surprise. I mean, whenever you're looking for surprise teams going into the year, you kind of look down towards the bottom of the standings in each division and pick out teams that, on paper look better than how they finished the year before. And certainly when you look at Buffalo going 6-10 and coming in, tying for third, finishing last in the AFC East, I think that was underachieving for them and why they made the coaching moves that they did. So, even at 8-8, 9-7, I'd consider them in that surprise team category. So I think that they can accomplish that. Again, it's going to come down to how well Marrone's style fits. Obviously, the key is always at quarterback. So whether it's Kevin Cobb or E.J. Manuel, they've got to get some good production there. But, as I said, I think I like the draft that they have. I think that they added a couple nice pieces at wide receiver. I think they've got a decent line in place. The Spiller-Fred Jackson combo is dangerous. And, I really like, especially up front, I think they're could be a solid defense. They've got to get some better play at linebacker. They've got to get some better play in the secondary. But I think the pieces are all there to really, I don't know that they're a Super Bowl contender, but anything less than 500 to me, I think, would be a disappointment for them.
Yeah, we'll take that. Now, you've written about E.J. Manuel a little bit over the past several months, the recent piece as well, and the quarterback competition is going to be one to watch. And I was actually just had a conversation with a bunch of people on Twitter about an hour ago about this. Who do you think is going to start this year? If you had to put your money down on Cobb or Manuel, just for week 1, who do you think is going to make it out of training camp as the guy under center?
I think it's going to be Cobb in week 1, and then from there it's really going to be, if they start, obviously, and win that game against the Patriots. And I think the schedule sort of lends itself towards a pretty decent start, 4-2 range, just sort of looking at it now. So if Cobb plays like he has when he's played well, there's been little spurts where he's been a decent NFL quarterback. So I think if he plays up to his capabilities, it's probably in the Bills' best interest to kind of bring Manuel along a little more slowly. I think that was sort of how I viewed him going into the draft. I think how a lot of people viewed him going into the draft was that he was a high upside quarterback, but one that didn't really produce the way he was expected to at Florida State. So you'd maybe want to kind of let him mature for a year, be the backup, and sort of learn the game a little better. So if Cobb can give him that safety net, give him that leeway to do that, I think that'd be the preferred way to go. And unless there's unless Manuel really blows up in training camp in the preseason, or Cobb just is awful, or there's an injury, I think that's probably how the pecking order will go coming into the regular season, is Cobb 1 and Manuel 2.
Yeah, I agree with that myself. Now, in your personal opinion, as a general rule, obviously everybody's different. Every player is different, every scheme, every situation, every team's different. But as a general rule, do you normally think that a rookie should sit at the outset, or do you think that they should start, or what?
Yeah, I mean, I think like you said, it sort of varies based on the guy and the team. I mean, it's someone like, as we saw Andrew Luck, I think he was especially set up to come in last year and play as well as he did. I mean, he was in that kind of quote-unquote pro-style system at Stanford, and I think really had progressed as much as he was going to before becoming a starter in the league. So generally I would think the goal would be to have the rookies come in and sit for a little bit, but at the same time, so many teams that draft rookies quarterbacks, especially, round 1, round 2, are teams that are in desperate need of a quarterback, so it makes it a lot harder. They don't always have a situation like this one where you have a guy like Cobb who at least can go out and play and win you some games if he's playing well. So I think the Bills have an advantage in that situation. I think that lets them be a little more cautious with Manuel coming out of the gate, but it's tough. We've seen some really good rookie quarterbacks. Obviously, last year was a good year for rookie quarterbacks. We saw Ben Roethlisberger take his team all the way to the Super Bowl his rookie year. So there's certainly success stories there, but it takes a really special quarterback to be really good his rookie year. So I think you can understand why teams push them to start, but at the same time, I don't know that that's necessarily the ideal situation for those guys.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. That's one thing I try to do when I talk to people, is just try to encourage them to tap the brakes a little bit. And even if the guy is a franchise savior, it doesn't necessarily mean it's going to start with the Patriots, in a few months in week 1. So, we'll have to remember it's a marathon, not a sprint, when it comes to a career like that. Okay, now one question we have as we wrap this up. Is there a breakout player on the team that you think is going to surprise Bills fans, or at least surprise maybe even just the league in general? Because, the Bills, they fly a little bit under the radar nationally. There's, one player that you think is going to show up and, surprise everybody this year on the roster currently?
Well, I think the chance is there for any guy that really cracks the starting lineup at wide receiver. I think they kind of know what they have in Stevie Johnson. So that number 2 spot, that number 3 spot, there's really an opportunity there. I wouldn't be surprised at all if Robert Woods outplays where he was drafted. People kind of talk about Matt Barkley all the time out of USC and his stats there, but Woods was phenomenal for him. He was a great college receiver when he was healthy. I think he's ready for the NFL game, so I don't see any reason that he couldn't step in and be, I don't know that he'd be in the Rookie of the Year conversation, but I think he has the potential to be a really solid contributor in year 1. So, the opportunity's there for him. And other than that, you just kind of look defensively and try to find someone that might step up by that linebacking core, whether it's Kiko Alonso or, I don't know, Nigel Bradham. I don't know. It's the same as the wide receiver core in my mind. You kind of have talent, but you're not really sure exactly who's going to be your go-to guys there. So if you're looking for kind of under-the-radar sleeper picks, I think those would be the 2 positions on Buffalo that I'd look at.
And I'm sure Bills fans would be happy with that suggestion. We've been looking for number 2 receiver behind Stevie for quite some time now, and we'll be pleased to see Robert step into that role without a doubt. For our listeners who aren't currently following you on Twitter, Chris, where can they find you at to look up and follow any Bills information that you come out with?
My Twitter handle is at Chris Burke, BURKE _SI, and then 95% of my stuff for Sports Illustrated is on NFL.si.com, which is the Audibles blog over there.
Okay. Well, thank you for joining us today. For those of you who aren't following Chris, please follow him. Great read for all Bills knowledge leading up to the season. And we'd like to thank you once again for taking the time and speaking with us today on Bills Central Radio, Chris. We appreciate it.
Yeah, sure, guys. Anytime.
Football fans, looking to get healthy this year? Now is the time, and I have the perfect place for you. Save 10% at onit.com/football radio. Exclusive PFC radio listeners save 10% off their order. That's onit.com, ONNIT.com/football radio.
And we're back on Bills Central Radio. Just to recap today's show, we had a couple of good guests on our show today. We had Bills punter Brian Stahovich, and we also had SI writer Chris Burke on the show today. What do you think about those interviews today, Del?
I thought it was great. It was exciting to finally talk to Brian voice-wise in terms of instead of just normal tweets or text messages or whatever. Really cool guy, really friendly. I thought it was great. He had some really cool insight and seems to really have a good grasp on just some common sense stuff, just in terms of how players relate to the fans and everything, and just really appreciating the position he's been given and everything. I think it's great. And I thought Chris had some really good things to say. It was great to hear his optimistic thoughts on 2013 for Buffalo.
Yeah, absolutely. You alluded to Brian talking a little bit about the Bills Mafia and the appreciation that he shows to the fans. It's always good to see athletes giving back, even if it is just conversing with fans on Twitter and everything. So that's good, and it's good to see that he's focused and he's ready to go heading into training camp, and hopefully he's going to do his best and hopefully win the starting job for the Bills punting. That's for sure.
Yeah, he's a good guy. He would deserve the opportunity. I'm pulling for him.
Now, Chris alluded to E.J. Manuel a little bit there. He kind of believes they should sit back and kind of let Cobb take the reins for a little bit. And you had mentioned that you're kind of on the side of that as well. I personally wouldn't mind either way. I know that Cobb has beaten the Patriots as he did last year when he was with the Cardinals. So I know he can beat the Patriots week one. But for the unseen rest of the season, it'll just all have to unfold and go at the pace that Coach Marone believes EJ can learn. And if it's on day one, then it's day one. But if not, then that's fine too.
Yeah, I like I said in the interview, I think it'll be Cobb in week one, or at least I wouldn't. Maybe a better way to put it is I don't think it'd be a tragedy if it was Cobb in week one. And if he plays well, then heck, wouldn't it be great to have that problem on our hands as Bills fans? Actually have a quarterback playing well. That would be fantastic. So it's a good problem to have if Cobb does win the job and they determine that Manuel needs a little bit more time just to grasp some of the pro concepts and everything. Not a big deal. It's fine. Like I mentioned with him, it's a marathon. It's not a sprint. We don't have to get this guy, out immediately and have him starting from out of the gate. I don't think that's not a huge deal if he's on the bench in week one. That's fine. It's fine.
Yeah, absolutely. I completely agree with you. In other news, anything going on at BillsMafia.com recently? Anything upcoming? Any news events?
Yeah, thanks for asking. We've got a lot going on at BillsMafia.com. In fact, even just this morning we published our Mafia Monday, which is now a monthly feature we do with a well-known or prominent Bills fan. So this month, we interviewed Nick Bakay, who is a comedian / screenwriter / sportscaster / whatever. He's all over Hollywood and in the background mostly, doing a lot of stuff. I think his most recent accomplishment maybe was screenwriter for Paul Blart, the mall security cop movie that starred Kevin James, and he was also the voice of the cat in Sabrina the Teenage Witch back in the 90s and everything. Great interview, funny guy. Check it out. It's on the front page of BillsMafia.com right now. Additionally, we have some big announcements that we're going to be putting out in the next couple of days, starting tomorrow right around the lunch hour. So keep an eye on @the Bills Mafia for a big exciting announcement that we're going to have, which obviously is exciting for me. It's going to allow us to do a little bit more this year. So there's a lot of big things in store for #BillsMafia in 2013. So keep an eye on it.
Absolutely. For those who are not following, be sure to follow them on Twitter. News events and everything coming up soon. It sounds like they have some great things going on at the website there. and definitely sounds like things are heading in the right direction. Well, that's it for this week's show on Bills Central Radio. Look for the link coming soon. We'll talk to you next week.
Thanks for tuning in to Bills Central Radio. For Bills news, updates, stats, highlights, and more, log on to ProFootballCentral.com.
Shout, 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 shout. Let's go, Buffalo. Let's go, Buffalo. Let's go, Buffalo. Touchdown, rain, sleet, or snow.